So let's go ahead and work on some inflation here. And I'm going to be using the Sonics Inflator, or the Sonics Oxford Inflator, which I can't stress enough. Like, I'm not someone who thinks that you absolutely need every plugin under the sun by any means. In fact, I cleared out a lot of plugins because I don't believe in that kind of mentality. I believe less is more, but there are certain plugins that are just so powerful and so incredible that they are must-haves. And this is definitely one of them. It basically provides an increase in the apparent loudness of your music, but without a reduction of your dynamic range. So this thing adds power, it adds presence, it adds warmth through some kind of like tube emulation type stuff going on in its algorithm. I mean, it really does sound incredible, and you're about to hear it, so you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, this thing is absolutely incredible. So what I've also done here is just pulled up a metering plugin so that you can kind of see what kind of effects this thing is having on our overall LUFS meters and just, the overall loudness of the track. So one thing you'll also notice is that I don't have a reference track in here. This song to me is so well mixed, so well done that I just didn't feel like a reference was actually necessary by any means. What I want to achieve is a healthy level of loudness. We can still compare it to something maybe at the absolute end, but I want to achieve a healthy level of loudness that will sound good, whether it's on Spotify or Apple Music or YouTube or SoundCloud for that matter. It should sound good on all of those. And kind of on that note, I talked about this a little bit in my stem mastering video, but all of the major streaming platforms, right? So this is Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube. They individually decided to match the loudness of the music on their platforms to one singular loudness level. So that means that if you make dubstep, right? Like super loud, noisy dubstep, or super calm, like, I don't know, yoga music or orchestral stuff, the average loudness for all listeners on a given platform will be exactly the same. So they, each streaming platform basically has these set levels, and they're all ranging between negative, I think, 13 and negative 16 LUFS meters. So you basically can't create one optimal level for all of these platforms, but what I would recommend is basically just mastering to be between -7 and -10 when it comes to your LUFS meters. That will generally get you loud enough to sound good whether you're outside of those streaming platforms or whether you're actually in them. The goal is to make a master that sounds good on its own, and then once it sounds good, whether it gets turned down a few dBs on these streaming platforms shouldn't really actually be a big deal. So anyway, that said, let's do this. Let's use this inflator. So basically what I like to do is turn off the clip knob, because then that kind of treats it like a limiter in case, you hit 0 dB. I don't want to worry about that here. I'll worry about that outside of this plugin. But basically what the inflator manual actually recommends, and this is different from the way that I used to use this, but it actually recommends that you go all the way up to 100% in effect and then play with the curve knob to determine how much of that effect you actually want in your mix. So that basically means that when the curve setting is at its minimum, it produces the most subtle change to the sound. Think a lot of kind of harmonic additions, but not a crazy amount of loudness, just a bunch of harmonic additions, and you'll still hear that. But when the curve is set to its maximum, it's going to be its loudest, fattest, most intense volume enhancement. So let me just set this kind of back to off, and I'll turn this down, and then you'll hear this kind of coming in. Right, it's incredible as I'm toggling between bypassing this plugin and keeping it on, right? Like how much low end and warmth and drive and really volume as well is being added just from the Oxford Inflator. And I'm not hearing any distortion. I'm sure that if I played with this curve knob a bit, I could create some distortion. So let's do that and kind of find this optimal spot between like a, maybe too much loudness and maybe something down here that would be just right for this track. So I'm loving kind of that balance right there. 100% effect, minus 10 on the curve. The amount of kind of low end power and warmth, and this is because this is a great track and there's a lot of good sounds in here to begin with, but the amount of low end impact and warmth that this plugin is creating on this overall master right now is absolutely incredible to me. It just sounds so damn good. And when I sent this track to the original artist, that's exactly what he asked. He's like, dude, how did you get the low end to sound like that? And I wish I had some crazy voodoo, technical professor-like solution for that. And to be honest, I do have a lot of those types of tricks and a lot of things that do help with that. But when it's just a master and I can't really go too far into the depths of this track, like this is a 1-track stereo master, I don't have the stems. This plugin is what's creating that warmth and creating that power. So again, can't stress this thing enough. It's just a beautiful, beautiful sounding plugin, and it sounds great on pretty much everything. But if you have a really good mix down already, this just really makes everything extra special.